You are watching The Bible Witness.
Blessed is the one who hears this prophecy, for the end time is near. My name is John the Apostle, and I'm boiled alive for claiming Jesus as King. But God protected me, so I remained unharmed. Frustrated, the Romans exiled me. The trip wasn't easy, yet within, I felt only peace. I accepted this exile calmly. Eventually, the storm ceased, and I arrived upon the barren shore of Patmos. Carrying only a parchment scroll, I stepped into my new home. I seated myself upon the cold stone, but I didn't await for what would come next. I am John, the one they called the beloved disciple. I once walked behind Jesus. I once leaned on his shoulder at the final meal. I was there when they raised him on the cross. I once saw the empty tomb. I saw him ascend into heaven, rising in light before our eyes. And now, in the quiet of my cave, a sudden light filled the room. I turned and he was there, robed in white light surrounding him. Then he gave me the visions of the end of time. The light lifted me from the ground before I could understand what was happening. And the earth fell away beneath clouds and stars. I rose higher, beyond the morning light, until I floated above the world itself. Space stretched silent around me. Then I saw it, a great gate standing on a cloud of light and color. I was small before it, drifting closer, trembling. I was inside, drawn toward the far end. Angels, real angels, were welcoming me. I had entered the gate of heaven. I entered a place where the ground was clouds and the sky clear above. Angels surrounded me as I floated forward, unable to speak. I looked up and saw the Lord sat at the center, too bright to behold, cloaked in pure light. Around him were 24 elders, each seated, crowned, watching. I dropped to my knees. I saw 7 flames burned near the throne. Those were his spirits. Then I saw 4 living creatures. Each has wings and eyes all over the body. One like a lion, one like an eagle, one like a man, and one like a bull. The elders fell forward together. Then they removed their crowns and laid them on the ground before him. One of the elders told me to look at the Lord's hand. Then I saw in the right hand of the Lord a scroll, sealed with 7 seals. A mighty voice declared, "Who is worthy to open the scroll?" And no one in heaven or on earth could open it or look inside. I wept and wept, because no one was found worthy. Then one of the elders came to me, placed his hand on my shoulder and pointed forward. Then I saw a lamb, laying as though it had been slain. But suddenly the lamb came back to life. The lamb rose and came forward. He went to the one seated on the throne and took the scroll from his right hand. When he took the scroll, I saw it was him, my beloved master. The 4 living creatures fell down before him, and the 24 elders fell down before him. The voices of angels surrounded us. The Lamb was worthy. He had been slain, and by his blood he ransomed people for God. I looked again, and my eyes filled with tears, not from sorrow, but from the weight of glory. The Lamb opened the first seal, and I looked. Then I heard the voice of the first living creature. It said, "Come," and a white horse appeared. Its body formed from words of flame. Its rider's name is Pestilence. He came forth from the gate. His horse struck the earth, and dust rose beneath its hooves. I watched him ride out. On his head was a crown, in his hand was a golden bow, and I saw Pestilence go out upon the earth. He breathed, and men fell. I saw children stilled in their mother's arms. Waters turned toxic beneath him. I saw the fallen lying silent on the stone. Eyes stared without breath. No life remained. He passed through house and temple, field and marketplace. The old were not spared. Death came quickly. I saw them lying in heaps. No one left to carry them. The strong fell beside their goods, never to rise again. Crowds once gathered here, now silence held the seats. The rats ran in waves, spreading the pestilence. I saw men try to name the sickness, but their words failed them. I saw fire consume the dead. The living could not bury them all. Nothing withstood him, beast or man. The young sat alone, not knowing they had survived. The dead lay hidden, their names already lost. Even the smallest movement was stilled. I saw hands fall cold. What was precious no longer mattered. The fog followed him wherever he went, and I understood. This was only the beginning. When the Lamb opened the second seal, then another horse came out, a fiery one. Its rider's name is War. I saw him fall like fire through the sky. Power was given to him to take peace from the earth, so that men would slay one another. And when his horse struck the ground, it cracked beneath him. And I saw that peace was taken from the earth. Cities burned, walls crumbled, altars split open and idols fell. I saw swords lifted in temples and blood spilled in marketplaces. Brother turned against brother. No place was spared. The strong enslaved the weak. The conquerors tore down gods they did not know. War gave the command, and men obeyed. Violence spread without end. The blade knew no side. He pushes the war more far. The world drowned in its own blood. Fire followed them, and ash covered their path. The sacred was mocked and thrown down. I saw men forced to carry stones while others watched with spears. Kings were bound and sacrificed. The rider moved through the smoke, his foot on the fallen. Fields of steel were left behind, and so war departed, leaving silence in his shadow. When the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come." Then a black horse appeared, its rider named Famine. I saw clouds gather dark above the earth. He stood on cracked ground, fields parched and empty. Famine's touch turned ripe fruit to rot. Fields withered as he passed. The harvest crumbled where it stood, gray and lifeless. Hunger stripped hope from the eyes of men. The ground was cracked and barren. They searched for crumbs that never came. The swarm devoured what little remained. Children chewed ash for nourishment. Even the beasts had starved, their bones whitening under sun. The final handful fell like gold, too little. Famine's scale held no wheat, only weightless dust. Crops collapsed of their own sorrow. Beggars queued for nothing. People sold human flesh openly on the streets. Families traded their children to eat one another's babies. Some parents buried their infants alive because they could no longer feed them. Others shaped soil into food, fooling hunger one more day. And yet kings gorged themselves in golden halls. The nobles wasted food while others starved. Even false gods were fed. Famine's reach spread like wildfire, gray swallowing green. Famine rode on beneath a dying sky, and the earth lay still behind him. When he opened the fourth seal, I saw the scroll again. 3 seals remained. The voice of the fourth creature called out, "Come." I looked. The scroll horse cried out. A rider came forth. She sat upon a pale horse, and in her hand was a golden scythe. A beam of light fell from above. She stood in a place where nothing lived. I saw shadows rising from under the earth. One was clothed in the armor of old. He walked toward the light. Many more followed. They carried the tools of their slavery. They entered their former king's court. He awoke in terror. They overtook him, and his cries faded. She turned toward me. Her eyes still glowed. I saw another soul touch the tomb of its own flesh. They moved through ruins that once honored false gods. Some passed the altars where blood was spilled. They climbed the temple stairs without sound. A soul rose from a lifeless body in the dust. Others followed, flesh behind, spirit ahead. A small child wandered between broken walls. On the fields of war, I saw spirits lift like smoke. They moved like mist through the mountains. A glow led them onward across dead lands. The rider stood at their head. They gathered behind her. Together they passed into the white without end. I looked, and behold, 4 riders rode as one. Power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth. Then the Lamb opened the 5th seal. I saw the Lord on his throne giving a command. The souls of those who had been killed for their faith appeared. I remembered how they were put to death. They're all my brothers and sisters. Andrew was crucified. Bartholomew was tortured and killed. Philip was burned alive. Thomas was beheaded. I, John, was sentenced to death, but I lived. Others were thrown to wild beasts. I don't know the fate of Mary. The souls cried out for justice. Some lifted their hands and prayed. All looked to heaven, waiting. But they were told to wait a little longer. Then white robes were given to each of them. They received them as it was appointed. They stood beneath the altar, clothed and waiting. The Lord sat still upon his throne. He gave no answer. One of them cried out, asking how long until justice would come. The Lord did not reply. The time was not yet. When the Lamb opened the 6th seal, I saw what followed. There was a great earthquake. The whole earth trembled. The sun became black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The full moon turned blood red. The stars fell to the earth, as a fig tree sheds its unripe figs when shaken by a strong wind. They dropped quickly, one after another. The sky was split apart like a scroll when it is rolled up. Every mountain moved from its place. The islands, too, were shifted and swallowed by the sea. Then the kings of the earth hid themselves. So did the nobles and high officials. The commanders crouched down in fear. The rich tried to cover themselves. The powerful and the priests did the same. Even the slaves and the free trembled and hid. The young searched for places to escape. All cried out to the mountains and the rocks. They said, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb." Then I saw the Lord giving command again. And I looked, and behold, on Mount Zion stood a multitude. They lifted their eyes. They were many, standing in order, stretching far. One stood still, eyes closed, and a seal appeared on his forehead. The mark shone, and I knew it was the seal of the living God. Others also bore the mark, and they looked upward. And the number of the sealed was 144,000, from all the tribes of the children of Israel. After this, I looked, and there was a great multitude, from every nation and language. They were clothed in white robes and held palm branches in their hands. I saw a man spraised, his eyes lifted to the throne. They said, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." All fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped God. The angels stood around the throne, and around the elders and the 4 living creatures. Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen. One of the elders stepped back, bowed his head, hand over his heart. The living creature, full of eyes, lowered itself to the ground. All the angels and the people bowed before the throne. Some of the multitude spoke together, their eyes looking upward. Then one of the elders asked me who they are. I said to him, "Only God knows." These are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. The one who sits on the throne spread his hand forward in blessing. The Lamb walked into the temple, his shadow trailing behind. He stood in the center of golden fields, surrounded by perfect white light. He bent down to the water and touched it gently. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. When the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Then I saw 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them.
You are watching The Bible Witness.
I saw the whore of Babylon seated high upon the throne, a golden cup in her hand, and pride upon her brow. With her was the beast from the sea, its many heads watching, waiting. Then came the kings of earth. Each of them carries both doubt and fear. They submitted to her before her throne, vowed to her the loyalty she wanted to hear. I watched as they all wanted to lick her boots, to have her love, her favor. I saw my brothers and sisters slain. The red soaked the road in patches, spreading like spilled wine. I saw the whore bent down and filled her cup from the blood of the saints. She enjoyed their blood. And then the kings came again. The whore feed them with the blood of the saint. The blood spilled over their face, soaked their robes. And I knew that her end is near. I am John the Apostle, exiled for the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. When he came to me, the Lord himself, he stood in light. His face was like the morning, and his hand reached for mine. And my eyes were opened. I saw what must come. I saw the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse released. I saw the Abaddons rise, a creature crowned and cruel, and the dragon waited in the void, ready to devour the child. Then the beast rose from the sea. Its heads broke the surface one by one. The great cities fell. I was told, it is not the end. The bowls have not yet been poured. The wrath of God is still to come. People on earth entered Babylon by choice. I beheld the great harlot seated in authority, clothed in power and blasphemy. I saw one from the people approached. He did not resist. The mark of the beast appeared on his forehead. He screamed. The entire crowd was marked. Their faces were empty. Their will was gone. Some refused the mark. A remnant ran. The marked became hunters. They chased the unmarked. The system allowed no escape. The remnant was hunted. They found no shelter. They can't buy nor sell nor trade. Many had fallen. Some still clung to life. Most were lost. There's no way out to them but death. I saw the great harlot stood before the image of the beast. The ritual began. She raised her hands to lead the worship. The people bowed. They worshipped the beast. Tears fell. But the mark could not be undone. That night she entered the dark chamber to meet her master. Satan stood waiting, horned and silent. She gave herself to him. Babylon was his. I saw a voice came down from the sky. The messenger arrived with power. The earth shook as he touched down. His eyes burned with the message he carried. He opened his mouth and cried out, "Babylon has fallen. The judgment is here." Light and sound spread beyond every border. No wall stood against it. In the east, they looked up and trembled. In the north, they saw the light and knew it was not of this world. In the south, they fell to their knees without words. Those who carried gold and jewels feared what no wealth could silence. Even the marked heard it. Kings turned their faces upward and forgot their crowns. All nations heard. The truth reached every throne and every tribe. The 7 bowls of wrath were prepared. 7 were appointed. They stood ready, waiting for the command. The bowls of wrath passed from servant to servant. Then the Lord pointed. The command given. The 7 lifted the bowls. Judgment was set in motion. The first angel poured out his bowl, and the judgment took form. The plague fell like thick poison, flowing downward without mercy. The marked were struck first. Their skin cracked, and their voices broke in pain. The sores spread quickly, turning limbs to ruin. Even the strongest could not resist the curse. Their backs bowed under the weight of burning flesh. Faces were covered in rot, and breath came with agony. They hid their faces in shame, but the affliction did not hide with them. They drank what they thought might save them. It did not. The sores remained, spreading even faster. Even the healers were consumed. Their craft failed them. Even Ganges River could not cleanse what had been marked for wrath. Tears and blood mixed as they cried out, but no answer came. The dead lay unburied, and the flies gathered as witnesses. The second angel poured out his bowl upon the sea. Its surface turned, and the waters became as blood. The creatures below thrashed, then floated lifeless. Even the great sea beasts died, their bodies cast onto the shore. The seas burned red across the world. The waters rose in wrath and moved against the land. Ships were broken by the waves. No vessel stood firm. Wreckage drifted in the red tide, marked by the wind. Those who live on the ice looked down and saw the end of provision. On distant islands, they watched the sea turn against them. Their nets gathered only death, and their mouths fell silent. The third angel poured out his bowl, and the rivers turned to blood. Waters that once gave life now testified against the living. From the ancient streams to the hidden springs, all became as death. Those who depended on the flow reached down and saw judgment. Their rituals failed. Their eyes widened. They drank nothing. The vessels they used brought no relief. Even the beasts that trusted the earth were not spared. What touched the red water fell silent, and the rivers, once filled with song, reflected only the weight of heaven's wrath. The fourth angel poured out his bowl upon the sun. Fire was given to it, burning without restraint. The flame leapt and scorched the earth. Heat fell upon all the lands, from the greatest to the least. Laborers bent under its weight, their strength withering. Blisters rose where hands once worked. Stones cracked, and toil gave way to groans. Their bodies trembled under the blaze. They looked upward, but no mercy came. Their false idols crumbled in the heat. They prayed, but the heavens were closed. Their lips cracked, and no water soothed them. They shed blood, yet no answer came from above. The false devotees lifted their hands, but only silence returned. The ground consumed the dead without pity. Forests turned to smoke, and the sky grew thick. The deep burst open, and fire joined fire. Beasts fell where they once roamed. The rivers gave nothing, only decay. All ice melted into water beneath the sun, and none found refuge. Despite all this, they still raised their voices in rage, cursing God. They pointed upward and blamed the one who holds the plagues. They offered no repentance, but returned to human sacrifices and idols. Fires does the blasphemous. Altars were overturned, and the holy defiled. Books were torn and cast to the ground. Even the image of the blessed was not spared. They bowed before the sign of the beast. The shadow of Satan was lifted above their cities, but he who sits on the throne did not answer. He watched, silent and shining. Then the fifth poured out his bowl upon the throne of the beast, and a darkness spread forth like thick poison. It came down to earth like waterfall. The darkness crept across cities and nations. The throne of the beast was the first to be swallowed by darkness. Its mouths opened, and blackness flowed from within. It clung to rooftops, devouring streets. It choked the high towers and ancient shrines. It covered idols and homes alike. Men fell to the ground, gripping their throats, their eyes wide with terror. Women screamed as the blackness touched their flesh. Children wept in confusion as the darkness swallowed their feet. In every land, they collapsed and cursed the light. They writhed in the shadow, but none turned back. None repented. Then the sixth angel poured out his bowl, and the Euphrates river dried up. Its bed cracked wide, exposing the path of destiny. The great river ran dry and split apart. The earth mourned its fracture. From the dragon's mouth came a foul sign. Frogs poured from its jaws, symbols of deception. The beast's head gaped and summoned them. The frogs leapt into every land as agents of darkness. Out from the Antichrist, the frogs came. In dark chambers, the frogs turned into unholy messengers. The messengers talked to warriors of the east. The foul creatures clung to robes of power. The West rulers listened to them. Poison dripped from unseen lips. Northern kings refused at first, but did not stand alone. The creatures obeyed with silent intent. Ancient kings bowed to the unseen command. The frog passed between throne and shadow. Warriors formed a line before unholy authority. Cloaks carried the darkness into their midst. Eastern monarchs joined in the silent alliance. Eyes behind the veil mirrored their submission. The messengers did their role well. They spread lies to everywhere in the world. Kings on horseback summoned their armies. Eastern armies marshaled under silent banners. Northern forces followed their call to war. In the American jungle, a ruler bore the blade toward Babylon. Kings of many lands stood armed before the city gates. Monarchs locked eyes, raising steel in unity. Within, the whore laughed in pride, seated in power, blind to her doom. I saw the seventh poured his bowl into the air. Light fell like a blade from heaven. God gave his last command. I saw radiance surged outward, expanding in all directions. A violent flash burst from the light, and a bolt of lightning followed. The sky split open, carved by thunder. A lightning bolt struck a mountaintop, igniting the stone. The earth cracked open, deepening into a chasm. Walls split as though pushed from within. Babylon's walls leaned, their blue surfaces fractured. A deep rift carved through the city square. Watchtowers tilted off balance. Idols tumbled, face first into dust. Temples collapsed under the strain. Wooden pagodas fractured. Stones fell from pyramids like loose teeth. Straw huts scattered under invisible force. The altar stones split down the center. From the heavens, a great wound opened on the land. Seas swelled and swept over the last high places. From below, mountains disappeared under quiet waters. Great hailstones plunged from the dark sky. One shattered a stone rooftop into fragments. Rocks and soil flew as ice struck the earth. Curved roofs caved beneath the blow. Columns snapped cleanly down the middle. Thatched huts crumpled under the frozen weight. Idols fell with cracked limbs and shattered faces. A golden pedestal splintered beneath an icy spike. The ground bore the scar of the impact. Some raised clenched fists and cried out blasphemous. Others pointed to the heavens, their mouths spewing curses to the Lord. Many fell to their knees, beating the ground. False holy men raised their voices in blasphemy. I stood still shocked of what I saw. Then I felt a presence behind me, firm, calm, and a hand rested on my shoulder. I turned. One of the angels pointed, and my eyes followed. I saw the whore and the beast who carries her. She sat upon a high throne, lifted by stone and pride. One by one, rulers entered, proud, decorated, cloaked in power, each from distant lands, yet drawn to her as if by hunger. They bowed, they stared, they reached. One sank to his knees, drawn low beneath her gaze, and she laid back, draped in her own glory, letting them come. I saw the road, stretching far, lined with wood and bodies of the martyrs. Nails held them down as blood ran freely to the dust. The earth drank it, pooling dark between broken stones. I saw Andrew lay still among the stones who killed him. I saw Philip stood in flame. He was burned alive. Bartholomew beheaded. The blade had no hesitation. I saw myself was boiled alive, yet I endured. Others huddled in the arena, feed to the beasts. I saw they looked up, hands trembling, waiting for the end. The whore lift a cup. She dipped it into the red that ran beneath our feet. She raised it high, her gaze fixed and empty. One by one, the kings received it. Another's eyes filled as he took it. Arms wide, he drank as if welcoming judgment. The last let it spill, a red trace across his mouth like a mark he chose. I saw the whore laughed loud atop the beast that carried her like a throne. But suddenly the beast turned back toward her, and their mouths opened. Fire came, full and fierce. Her scream tore the sky as flames took hold and climbed her robe. I watched her face vanish behind the blaze, her hands too late to stop it. Babylon burned. Its gates gave way to fire and black smoke. The towers split, bursting from within. Rows of homes fell as flames raced across their roofs. Cloth, spices, silver, all fed the fire as frames collapsed. Smoke climbed into the heavens, a dark veil over the land. Her people fled in silence, heads low, clutching what they could carry. On high ground, kings stood and stared into the rising smoke. One wept as if the fire had reached his own chest. Merchants fell to their knees, fists clenched, watching their trade die in flame. Even the silk that once bore wealth now burned into dust. Stacks of goods cracked and vanished in the heat. Out at sea, sailors was suffering the same thing. But at the final, I saw the Lord stood among them, still and bright. From the mist, the horse came. People reached for armor, pulling it close with steady hands. Straps tightened. Then he mounted. The reins moved with his grip. The sword rose. Behind him, they answered with the lift of spears, and the silence that followed was not stillness, but the breath before glory.
What if the four horsemen of the apocalypse, harbingers of divine judgment, rode into our world today? Since ancient days, humanity has spun tales of prophecy and doom, each generation framing its fears through the prism of apocalyptic imagery. Among these visions, none are as vivid or enduring as the four horsemen of the apocalypse described in the book of Revelation chapter 6. 4 riders, each astride a horse of white, red, black, or pale hue, emerge as messengers of calamity, pestilence, war, famine, and death, their arrival signaling a reckoning that transcends time. Their legend is woven into the fabric of collective memory, evoking awe and dread in equal measure. Yet what if these ancient figures descended not upon the biblical landscape, but into the complexities of the modern world? How would their symbols of devastation manifest in our age of technology, interconnected societies, and fragile stability? In their biblical origins, the four horsemen are summoned by the Lamb of God as the seals of a sacred scroll are broken, unleashing them upon the earth. The first rider, astride a white horse, is crowned and armed with a bow, often interpreted as conquest or pestilence, bringing domination or disease. The second, on a fiery red horse, wields a great sword and embodies the chaos of war and bloodshed. The third, mounted on a black horse, carries scales, symbolizing famine, scarcity, and economic collapse. Finally, the fourth rides a pale horse, whose rider is named Death, followed closely by Hades, representing the inevitability of mortality. These figures are not mere characters, but profound allegories for human suffering and the consequences of sin, each rider representing a specific aspect of divine judgment. Over centuries, their legend has been retold in art, literature, and theology, serving as both a warning and a reflection of humanity's deepest anxieties. They capture the universal fears of disease, conflict, starvation, and death, transcending cultural and historical boundaries to remain deeply relevant even in the modern era. And if this topic sparks your curiosity, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us dive deeper into thought-provoking subjects like this and bring you more engaging content every week. Now, let's dive into the heart of the matter. What would it actually look like if the four horsemen of the apocalypse, symbols of conquest, war, famine, and death, descended upon our modern world? How would their arrival reshape our societies, challenge our resilience, and force us to confront the fragility of human civilization? The White Rider, Crown and Bow. Now let's learn about these four mysterious characters together. The first part of chapter 6 of the book of Revelation is described as follows. I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a voice like thunder, Come! I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. When the first seal was broken, the atmosphere grew tense, as though an invisible threat was looming. From the horizon emerged a white horse, its rider draped in a cloak that shimmered like frost in the sunlight. He held a bow, not to shoot arrows, but to unleash something far more sinister, the power to conquer through unseen forces. This was pestilence, the bringer of disease and domination, wielding an ancient force that preyed on humanity's weaknesses. In ancient texts, this rider symbolized both conquest and plague, illustrating how expansion and suffering often went hand in hand. Pestilence didn't just represent sickness, it embodied the chaos and collapse that disease could bring to entire civilizations. But in today's world, with all its advanced technology and medical breakthroughs, how would this ancient figure appear? Pestilence wouldn't arrive with mystical rituals, but would instead seep through the cracks of our global systems, exploiting the fragile interconnections we rely on. Imagine the shadow of pestilence falling over bustling cities. At first, whispers of a strange illness would circulate in the media, dismissed as rumors or isolated outbreaks. Then reality would set in, a rapidly mutating virus resistant to treatments, spreading across continents at the speed of air travel. News feeds would flood with grim updates, hospital corridors would overflow, and the relentless hum of ventilators would create a chilling soundtrack of despair. Even with its advancements, modern healthcare is not immune to collapse. In the wake of pestilence, hospitals would be overwhelmed, their resources stretched to the breaking point. Doctors and nurses, symbols of hope, would face burnout and impossible choices about who to save. Ventilators, medications, and protective equipment would become precious commodities, fueling desperate struggles for survival. As misinformation spread like wildfire, trust in science and government would erode, amplifying the crisis. The economy would buckle under the strain of prolonged lockdowns, broken supply chains, and skyrocketing healthcare costs. Businesses, both large and small, would shutter, unemployment would soar, and governments would scramble to stabilize collapsing markets. Social bonds would fray as fear and uncertainty seeped into every aspect of daily life. Communities would splinter, with some turning to solidarity and mutual aid, while others gave in to paranoia and isolation. However, in the darkest moments, humanity's strength often shines the brightest. Throughout history, pandemics have driven societies to seek comfort in spirituality, art, and collective action. Places of worship, whether physical or virtual, would transform into sanctuaries of hope, their hymns and prayers echoing as defiance against despair. Scientific innovation would accelerate, with researchers racing to develop treatments and vaccines. The modern staff of healing, wielded by today's heroes, could still triumph over the unyielding assault of pestilence. The Red Rider, Sword of War. The second part of chapter 6 of Revelation book writes, "When the Lamb opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, 'Come!' Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. To him was given a large sword. The second horseman, astride a fiery red horse, emerges with an aura of destruction and discord. His sword gleams in the dim light, not as a symbol of justice, but as an instrument of chaos. War's arrival signifies the collapse of peace as humanity succumbs to its baser instincts. In the ancient context, this horseman represented the bloodshed and suffering that follows the breakdown of order. But what form would this destructive force take in a world defined by globalized economies, instant communication, and weapons of unimaginable power? In today's world, war's influence would not be confined to battlefields or trenches. It would seep into every corner of existence, disrupting daily life through both overt conflict and subtler forms of aggression. The fiery red horse might gallop through the arenas of cyber warfare, economic sanctions, and ideological propaganda, where nations wield influence as weapons. Territorial disputes would escalate, drawing in superpowers and destabilizing entire regions. Proxy wars, fought in the shadows of diplomacy, would leave nations scarred and alliances strained. The current global landscape offers glimpses of war's modern form. In the ongoing conflicts between nations like Russia and Ukraine, the devastating consequences of territorial ambition are laid bare. Civilian casualties mount as urban centers are reduced to rubble, while refugee crises spill across borders. Simultaneously, ideological divisions in regions like the Middle East foster cycles of violence that seem immune to resolution. Each conflict serves as a stark reminder of humanity's propensity for destruction when the bonds of peace are severed. War's toll is measured not only in lives lost, but also in the erosion of hope and humanity. Refugees fleeing violence carry with them the weight of trauma and uncertainty. Cities become graveyards of ambition, their infrastructure shattered and economies crippled. Children grow up in the shadow of conflict, their laughter replaced by the sounds of gunfire and sirens. The psychological scars of war linger long after the battle's end, leaving generations haunted by memories of suffering. Amid the chaos of war's reign, faith often becomes a refuge. In history, moments of intense conflict have driven individuals and communities to seek solace in spirituality. Prayers for peace echo across borders, uniting people in their longing for harmony. Activists and leaders emerge as beacons of hope, advocating for dialogue and reconciliation. In the darkest hours, the human spirit's capacity for compassion and resilience stands as a defiant counter to war's destruction. The Black Rider, Scales of Famine. The next part of chapter 6 of Revelation book writes, "When the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, 'Come!' I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine." The black horse emerges slowly, its rider gaunt and severe, clutching the delicate balance of a pair of scales. Unlike the chaos of war or the silent terror of pestilence, famine is methodical, deliberate in its approach. His presence is not heralded by explosions or plagues, but by the quiet desperation of empty markets, barren fields, and the gnawing ache of hunger. He walks a world of abundance, yet leaves scarcity in his wake, his scales a symbol of inequity and disproportion. In today's interconnected society, famine would not appear as an absence of food, but as a cruel paradox. Overproduction in some regions while others starve. The mechanisms of globalization exacerbate this inequity. Supply chain disruptions, economic sanctions, and the greed of monopolies concentrate resources in the hands of a few while billions face hunger. Climate change intensifies this dynamic, with droughts, floods, and wildfires devastating agricultural hubs. Even nations with historically stable food supplies would find themselves vulnerable to the rider's touch. In some parts of the world, his presence is already felt. From the arid plains of the Sahel in Africa to the drought-stricken regions of South Asia, millions face starvation despite global efforts to combat hunger. In wealthier nations, food deserts, urban areas where affordable and nutritious food is scarce, highlight another form of famine's reach. The rider's scales tip not from natural scarcity, but from human neglect and mismanagement. Famine challenges humanity's collective conscience. How can a world capable of producing more than enough for everyone allow so many to go hungry? Religious teachings often frame hunger as a test of compassion and generosity. During times of scarcity, faith communities have historically stepped forward to provide aid, inspiring acts of charity and solidarity. Yet famine's presence also exposes moral failings, greed, neglect, and indifference, forcing societies to confront their priorities and values. The black horse and its rider serve as a grim reminder of the consequences of imbalance. The scales in his hand weigh not only grain, but also the equity of human systems. Famine's lessons are stark but vital, that abundance without fairness breeds collapse, and that the fragility of our systems can magnify the smallest disruption into a global crisis. As his shadow stretches across the world, humanity must ask whether it can tip the scales back toward justice and sustainability, or whether it will remain captive to the rider's inexorable march. The Pale Rider, Death and Hades. The last horseman of the 4 horsemen is described in the book of Revelation as follows. When the Lamb opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature say, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. They were given power over 1/4 of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. The pale horse emerges from the shadows, a ghostly figure whose very presence seems to drain the warmth from the air. Its rider, Death, carries no crown, no weapon. He has no need for such symbols. His power is absolute, his reach universal. Behind him follows Hades, an unyielding shadow that claims all who fall to death's grasp. Together, they represent life's one certainty, an unstoppable force that transcends time, status, and belief. In death's skeletal face, humanity sees its greatest fear and ultimate equalizer. In today's world, death does not come as a single apocalyptic event, but as a cascade of ongoing crises. Pandemics, natural disasters, and violence claim lives daily, their impact growing with every passing year. The spread of deadly diseases, amplified by urbanization and global travel, offers a haunting glimpse of death's pale hand at work. Pandemics like COVID-19 have exposed our shared fragility, as millions fall victim not only to illness, but to strained healthcare systems unable to cope. But death's reach goes far beyond disease. His shadow lingers in the aftermath of wars, famines, and environmental calamities. Rising sea levels displace entire communities, hurricanes and wildfires carve paths of destruction, and earthquakes leave cities in ruins. Injustice, too, gives death more power. Marginalized groups often suffer the most, their lives undervalued, their deaths too easily ignored. From mass shootings to systemic neglect, the failures of modern society fuel death's relentless march. Throughout history, death has inspired art, thought, and faith. From Egypt's pyramids to the poignant verses of poets, humanity has long tried to understand and confront the reality of its end. Religions offer different interpretations of death's role. Christianity promises eternal life, Hinduism teaches reincarnation, and Buddhism seeks liberation from the cycle of suffering. These beliefs bring comfort, helping people face death with courage and hope. As the final horseman, death represents the culmination of all the others. His presence is not limited to physical endings. It encompasses the broader collapse brought by pestilence, war, and famine. He is a reckoning, a mirror forcing humanity to confront the fleeting nature of existence. Yet, within death's inevitability lies an opportunity to treasure life, to act with kindness, and to build something lasting, something that endures even as the pale rider continues his journey. The four horsemen do not ride in isolation. Their power lies not only in their individual devastation, but in the synergy of their combined forces. Each rider amplifies the impact of the others, weaving a tapestry of interconnected crises that ripple across the globe. The descent of one horseman sets the stage for the others, their influence creating a cycle of destruction that feeds upon itself. The interplay between the horsemen creates a domino effect. War weakens nations, enabling the spread of disease. Disease and conflict disrupt food production, leading to famine. Famine, in turn, erodes human vitality, making populations even more susceptible to illness and violence. This cycle perpetuates itself, a grim reminder of how interconnected the challenges of the modern world remain. The horseman's ancient imagery finds unsettling parallels in today's world. Pestilence echoes in the pandemics and diseases that test our resilience. War manifests not just on battlefields, but in ideological divides and the ever-looming specter of global conflict. Famine's shadow stretches over millions, exacerbated by climate change, economic inequity, and failing systems. And death, silent yet omnipresent, reminds us of the fragility of life and the impermanence of even our greatest achievements. The horseman's synergy serves as both a warning and an opportunity. If their arrival teaches us anything, it is that isolation is an illusion. The challenges we face are shared, as are the solutions. To break their cycle, humanity must embrace collective responsibility, fostering cooperation and innovation that transcend borders and ideologies. Only then can the tide of their march be turned. The four horsemen of the apocalypse gallop across the annals of human imagination as symbols of profound reckoning. Pestilence, war, famine, and death, each embodying distinct forces of destruction, are not confined to the past or to prophecy. Instead, they ride through the present, their shadows cast over the crises that define our age. Their descent is a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting our vulnerabilities and urging us to confront the choices that shape our collective destiny. Even in their most destructive forms, the horsemen leave space for hope. History is replete with examples of humanity's ability to overcome adversity, to rebuild after wars, to heal after plagues, to innovate after scarcity. The same spirit that has weathered countless storms can guide us forward, provided we choose courage over fear, action over apathy. The four horsemen ride not to seal humanity's fate, but to remind us of the stakes of our choices. Their presence in the modern world is a testament to the enduring relevance of their symbolism, urging us to confront the challenges of our time with wisdom and resolve. By heeding their warnings and embracing the responsibility they demand, we may not only halt their march, but chart a new course, one defined by resilience, compassion, and hope. If this message has touched you, please share it with others who may need encouragement. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more content that inspires and strengthens your faith. We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts on this message and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in the future.